Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China. Hello everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting, a strategic market research company in China, and this podcast, China Paradigm. And today I am finally with Dominic Johnson-Hill. I'm saying finally because we have to respell 2 times. And I was very excited actually 2 times to have you in the show, and finally it's the time working. Why I was excited is because you are a veteran entrepreneur in China. You have been in China since 1995, and you started Plastered, which is a design Apple company, but it's more than this. And I think we're going to discover it's more than this. That's why I found out through your website and by doing more research. Since 2006, so before the crisis, before when we found that China was becoming a big country, big economy, before the eyes were on China, you were already in China. You are selling not only in Beijing, because I didn't mention, but you are very Beijing located. You are in Nanluo Guxiang, the place to be in Beijing. The place you visit when you go to Beijing, and now you are selling in more than 10 locations worldwide. You have been also a TV presenter. You have written a book, A Foreign Entrepreneur's China Dream, and you have been spoken in many MBA, EMBAs, 60 Chinese universities, as I read online. Thanks, Dominic, for being with us.
That's a hell of an intro. First of all, I don't like the word veteran at all. That makes me sound really old. But maybe a war veteran is what it's like, having been in China for 25 years now. But thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, you know what? As anyone who's lived in China knows, it's the land of opportunity. You know, the economy's been booming since I got here. And 93, I essentially arrived. And so much about entrepreneurship is being in the right place at the right time. You know, I see so many great ideas fall flat just because of timing. And for me, I arrived at the right time. And so there's opportunity everywhere. So, you know, I ended up, you know, seizing a lot of opportunity and just being very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
That's something actually I like to talk about more later on, to be at the right place at the right time. I feel a lot of entrepreneurs in China say now that they could not do the same right now. But that's something I like to talk about later on. First, about what you do now. What's your business? Could you describe it in more details? So you are selling clothes in a specific location, which is in Nanluo Guxiang in Beijing. For those who have been in Beijing, I guess they all know Nanluo Guxiang. That's the core business. It's designed Apple, and I think for the ones who are watching the video, they can see some of your design behind you. But could you tell us more?
Right. So it started off very simply. Nanluo Guxiang is now a very famous hutong or old alleyway in Beijing, but I moved to live there in 2003 with my family into an old shared courtyard house with my family and 5 other Chinese families. And then one day I had a random idea, which was to create some Beijing T-shirts. And just with a very small amount of money, I designed and printed a small collection of sort of quirky T-shirts. And I opened the very first shop on the street. So it used to be a residential street, but, you know, and then I opened the shop there because it was the rent was cheap and it was close to home. I didn't have much money. 10 years later, it became the busiest retail street in Beijing. And, you know, on public holidays, it gets 100,000 people a day. So it's one of those kind of crazy China stories. And so it started off very much as quirky T-shirts, taking iconic objects and things that were in lives of Chinese people, things like old subway tickets, old mugs, old thermoses. I made them into images and created a kind of an iconic Beijing T-shirt brand. At the beginning, it was mostly foreigners that were buying my stuff. But then as I started to attract media attention, I slowly moved into the Chinese consumer market. And then as the brand grew, instead of just taking iconic objects, I started to work with more artists. And then I became a conceptual artist, and I provided ideas and concepts to artists, you know, in China and now around the world to create, you know, much more detailed and technical illustration artwork. As we grow the brand. And then then the business also grew to become an agency. So now we do, interior design and art installations and sculptures for other brands. Yeah, so it kind of started very small and very simple. I invested a tiny amount of my own money, which is all I had at the time to open this little shop. And then it just kind of grew organically as all this opportunity, came my way. And right place, right time.
Could you tell us more about how you design your brand? Is it yourself who designs the t-shirt initially? Is it you partner with artists? Could you tell us more about the creation?
Right. So the creation is I'm the conceptual guy. So I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't even use design software. But I have a lot of ideas. And those ideas come from really... I've lived in China so long. I'm a very visual person. I didn't do very well at school. And, I left England when I was about 18 and traveled around the world and eventually arrived in China as a backpacker. And so I never thought I was creative or even had a design skill. I just decided to try, design by working with other people. And so the design process now is very much, I have ideas and concepts. I write them down. Then I look for talent online and at events. And as soon as I find an artist who I think has the right aesthetic or has a certain skill set that I think will work with the concept, then I put the concept and the artist together and I work with them very closely to create the designs. The design behind me is a Japanese artist. And the concept is very simple. It's a Chinese revolutionary ballet girl. It was an art form from the 1960s, 70s when they banned Western art influence in China, and they had, instead of having ballet, they had girls doing ballet, but in Mao suits and guns. And so, and I've turned that into a sort of a pop, a piece of artwork. So that's really what we do. We create pop artwork, comic book artwork, this type of illustration artwork. And I work with artists all around the world, from North Korea, Japan, Venezuela, Spain, all over Europe, Britain, to create Beijing-centric artwork.
Sorry to use this word, which is not artistic at all, but what's the business model behind it? Do you partner with the artist sharing the profit? Do you hire them? And then it's all your own creation, your own brand? If an artist is listening to us, what kind of deal he would have with you?
Yeah, I have, I'm very much a bricks and mortar retail business. That's where we make most of our money is in stores. And so my fixed costs are very high. With retail, your net profit is usually, pretty low because of all your fixed costs. Rents in Beijing are very high. So I don't do a profit sharing with artists. I make it very clear with them at the beginning that this collaboration is that I come up with a concept, I guide you with sketches to help you create the artwork. When the artwork is done, I then own it. And I'm very clear with artists before we start with that model. When I started out, I wasn't, and I threw myself into a lot of collaborations with creative people. And then at the end, they're kind of like, everyone gets pissed off with each other because no one was clear at the beginning. So I learned my lesson early on. So now before I work with an artist, I make it very clear that, you get a payment to execute this artwork, this concept for me, and then I own it. Because, we also license our artwork to other territories. And if the artist isn't happy with that, then generally I just, won't collaborate. So I had to make that very clear at the beginning. Otherwise, the business doesn't make sense.
I see. I understand better now. You mentioned that you see your business as an agency because you are doing as well what I would call interior design. You have painted a wall, with your design opposite house. You have worked with Lululemon, which could be a competitor in some way. They're in the clothing industry, and it's a very established brand. You have worked with Hilton. You have worked with a lot of very iconic bars and places in Beijing, like Mocha Bro, like I think Great Leap Forward. So, could you tell us more about how you step by step switched? And what I'm even more interested is, I feel that people went to you to ask you to design for them because you have a very strong identity. which is to have to be able to design an iconic Beijing, an iconic China that very few people do. But I'm happy to listen to you if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think, Matthieu, it's very important in life to understand one's own sandpit, as we call it in business, which is the area that you play better than anybody else, to define your niche so that you can be competitive and have a market. Now, for me, this is, even though I've been in China for a long time, it's an away game. I'm competing against Chinese entrepreneurs who are, if not the best entrepreneurs in the world, and it's an away game. So I really need to understand my niche. And my niche is, I create Beijing-centric pop art. And I'm very good at that, because what I do is I look at Beijing from a foreigner's perspective with a fresh set of eyes. And that's very interesting. And so my niche is really that kind of pop Beijing, and I don't leave that. And so it's very much my aesthetic. And I don't really have anyone that competes with me on that. And so, as the artwork grew and I became better and I had more money, and I spent a lot of money working with better and more skilled and famous artists, the brand went from being a t-shirt brand to an art brand, and that was very much my goal. I wanted people to take me seriously. I used to get fed up with everyone saying, "You're the guy with the t-shirt shop." I wanted it to be more than that. And so as we became more well-known, I just one day had an opportunity. A friend of mine was starting a cafe chain called Mocha Bros. They were opening their first outlet. And the founder said to me, "I've got this huge wall and I don't know what to do with it." And I just saw opportunity. And I said, "Give me that wall. I'm going to put a big piece of artwork on it, and I'm going to give you that for free. And then you're going to put my logo on that wall so people know it's my artwork. And then elements of that artwork are going to go on your staff t-shirts." So I thought I could make money on the t-shirts. I'd get this amazing advertising in this public space. And it really worked. And it worked mostly because Mocha Bros is an awesome brand, and they created a lot of buzz. They have an amazing product and a team service. And the people felt it was a really good combination of this artwork, this experience. And so, Mocha Bros took off and, now grew to 7 or 8 locations around China. My artwork, became more and more visible. And from there, that's how I got Lululemon, and that then led on to Adidas and other collaborations that led on to the Opera House, the Hilton, and all of these other places around China. Now we're doing an apartment block in Luxembourg, and it's crazy, but we have this niche, and no one else really does it as well as we do. I know I'm the best at that, and that's what I stick to. I just do Beijing. And so it was Mocha Bros that started it. And then people took us, as soon as it went onto a wall, people were like, okay, this is a whole new medium. It's not just a t-shirt anymore. People think t-shirts are t-shirts. It was on a wall. And then I started doing, covering all of their walls with huge installations. And people were getting inspired by that. And then my phone started to ring, and I was getting WeChats and emails all the time with people who wanted to collaborate, private collectors, people who just wanted the prints. And so that changed everything. And it became a win-win, because then people started paying us, to put our artwork up in their locations. And it was branded. I would put Plastered into the artwork subtly somehow. So I was being paid to advertise. And then I was owning the artwork. So you go into the Opera House and see this huge mural of water ski ladies. And people are like, wow, that's incredible. Then you see in the corner, it says Art by Plastered. And then that artwork is owned by me. So then you go to my store and you can buy that artwork on merchandise and products. So I'm getting paid to advertise. I own the artwork, and I can then put it on products. So it happened organically, but it just turned out to be a really big win for us.
I see. Very interesting. Then comes the question about trademark. You are in a country, we are in a country where trademark is not very well respected. And I think it was even worse before than now. So your business is based on design, is based on trademark, is based on the fact that people should not copy you. So how did you deal with that? I mean, was it an issue? Maybe it wasn't.
Well, one thing I will say, Matthieu, is when in Rome, which is when I started my brand, I started it all based on stolen IP, which was, I took the old subway tickets from the Subway Commission, and they didn't trademark them. They had this whole collection of beautiful tickets. I'm a collector of vintage, so I collected tickets, and I got these beautiful subway tickets. And then I put them on T-shirts. And so I went down the trademark office and I trademarked them. So I actually stole them from the Subway Commission. And all of these old thermoses and old metal bowls that people got for wedding gifts with these beautiful patterns inside, I took out those patents. I went down the trademark office and trademarked them. So really, I started my brand on stolen IP. And then as my brand became more popular, now if you take some of my more popular images, you go to Taobao, the Chinese eBay, and you can do an image search. You'll see my products over all kinds of clothing and products. You see them on coffee mugs. You'll see them on kids' clothing. You'll see them on women's fashion brands. It's people, the more popular my artwork becomes, the more it gets stolen. And it's very hard to deal with that. Generally, I don't put a lot of time and effort into following up on that stuff. I have a lawyer who works on commission, so I don't pay him. He's a real, dragon. He goes after people. If he sees a company that's got a lot of money and they're using my artwork, he'll go after them. He'll sue them. He'll get some money and share some of the profit with me. I leave that to him. Me, I concentrate on innovation, which is, our brand doesn't do seasons. We just come out with new artwork all the time. And we're constantly changing and innovating and trying to stay up, with a very fast changing market. Our core customer is 27 years old. 3 years ago, they were 33 years old. We're redefining it. Our customers are getting younger. Our artwork needs to change with them. And so I just concentrate on innovation. IP, my shit gets stolen all the time. I don't think about it too much. I leave that to the lawyer. I get on with innovation.
But does the lawyer get results in China, and is able to get results, to get commission?
Yeah. It's a funny game. Very rarely do I get results from that. What I do find with the lawyer is when a big company, like a big hot pot brand, just opened up in Chongqing, somewhere down China, and they opened up their new store. There's big investment, and they've got my artwork all over the front of the store. And someone sent it to me, on WeChat. I forwarded it to the lawyer. He's rubbing his hands and he's thinking, right, I'm going after them. So I'll leave that to him. I've not received any considerable amount of money from this. But it's an away game here. It's a different country. It's a different culture. Things move very fast here. IP isn't respected yet. It will be in the future. Right now, I can't spend time thinking about that. It's a waste of time for me. I have the people that can deal with that. I get on with what's important.
So first question, you're in a country where trademark is not very well respected, and that's the key of your business. And second question is that you are in a country where censorship is strong, and you are dealing with icons of Beijing, of China, of leaders sometimes of China. Could you tell us a bit of some stories with censorship? You are in a place as well, Nanlugoxiang, where it's a strange place where you can see officials with their Yuan not far from where you are, and at the opposite, hipsters and very trendy cafe at the same time. So it's not a neutral location. It's a very, very visible location.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Matthew. I think that every culture has its unique eccentricities. I remember being in Myanmar a few years ago to film a TV show. I'm also a TV presenter. And when I was there, a guy from New Zealand got locked up because he created a flyer for a party, and it was a Buddha with headphones on. And he got put in prison, and you think how many flyers you see in the world for like Buddha bar or Buddha party. And it was just very simple. It was a Buddha's face with headphones on. And I think he's still in prison, 3-4 years later, although I haven't checked that news. But, China has its own eccentricities too on that front. And you have to play very carefully. I do play with icons, and sometimes there might be political or icons or people who are involved. I made a stained glass window of Deng Xiaoping, which was very much celebrating that. You have to. The political climate also changes very quickly here, so you just have to be careful. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be political at all. I'm just celebrating my eye on Beijing. But one has to tread carefully. It's not my culture, and I have to keep up to date with things as they change here. Maybe something that wasn't sensitive 5 years ago is now, but it's not my goal to upset. It's my goal to celebrate, and so creativity is at its best when it's unfettered. when it's not, censored, of course. But here in China, it's a different game. So I think, we have to respect the local culture and play around those rules and get creative in other ways. And that's part of the game. And I very much enjoy it.
How do you know the parameters then of censorship, of what you can, what you cannot, what's the limit, what can not be seen as friendly? How do you know? How do you feel it?
I think you need to have one ear, to the ground, or you need to be, carefully watching what's going on. And I live here, and all my team are Chinese, and my life is very much surrounded by Chinese people. So I hear the daily conversations, and you might know what are hot topics or sensitive topics and things to stay away from. For me, I'm just trying to celebrate things that I think are fun. I just came out with a piece of artwork which was about, it was like a comic book hero, punching and destroying a guy who's doing a live broadcast. I'm trying to take topical things, zhibo, or, live broadcast is very popular in China. You see people in cafes doing a live broadcast. Here I am having my coffee and these KOLs, and I just think, it's totally ridiculous. So I do a comic book of artwork where a superhero is killing a live broadcaster. That's just a bit of fun. But then, maybe that will get posted on Chinese Twitter, on someone will say this is disrespectful, and then you got to take it down. You have to be careful. I don't want to upset people, but at the same time, I like to be naughty and silly and ridiculous. And that's really what my brand does. It's an extension of my personality. So the goal is never to upset, but certainly my goal is to have fun. And sometimes you might tread on the wrong toes. So you have to be careful.
You mentioned that you are also working in Luxembourg on some design. And I witnessed when I went to Europe that China is more and more trendy. There is more and more an attraction toward China pop culture, a bit like we saw in the past with South Korea. Not to the same degree, but do you find some elements like bubble tea, like basically the culture of China? Do you feel that, and do you think that you could play in this area as well, actually as a foreigner within between the China and the West?
I think, there's huge potential for what we do because we're doing an East-West. A lot of what I do as well is taking Western elements like comic book artwork and then adding in Chinese elements. And so it does bridge. I was very fortunate to attend the Crack Illustration Festival in Rome last year with my team, and we set up a pop-up shop. Now, that illustration festival is predominantly European artists. And so we were the first Chinese brand to go in there, and we set up a pop-up shop. It was a 4-day event, and within 2 days, we sold everything. It was all gone. And the reason was it was so exciting for the Italians to see Chinese pop artwork, and so surprising. They'd never seen anything like it. And when you stand there and tell them the story of the artwork and even the collaborations I did with North Korean artists, they were just completely blown away. And that was very exciting for me, to realize the potential, of the brand and aesthetically. And so, yeah, of course, I think, a lot of people have real intrigue towards China. It's the country that's shaping the world right now. I mean, it is literally shaping the world. And so people are slowly, coming to understand China and have intrigue and interest towards it. And so I think, our artwork is very much part of that. The building that we're working on in Luxembourg is a 6-story apartment block for yuppies. And the developer went to the opposite house in Beijing, saw our artwork on the wall and said, wow, this is stunning. He contacted me. He said, listen, I need 6 floors of artwork, and I think your aesthetic would be brilliant. And that's how it happened, So those kind of projects are really exciting, and it makes me very proud as well to be able to take, our artwork and put it in Europe. So, I think just by the sheer amount of emails and demand I have from people who want to work, with us, you can see that obviously that the whole China aesthetic is becoming very popular. But having said that, I'm not out to build the biggest business, Matthieu. I keep my business small for a reason. I see too many businesses die because they're growing. And I've always kept my business small. I've grown it organically and I own it 100%. And so I'm about to build the best, not the biggest. And with the agency, I only take on probably 8 to 10 projects a year. And so, I can choose which ones I think will work well with the brand. Generally, I always say the 3 Fs, which is the fun, financial, and fame. And it's got to be 2 of those Fs. If it's just financial, if it's fun and fame, that's great. Sometimes people give you an incredible, mural or wall to create. The money's not that good, but they give you absolute creative freedom. But you want to do it for the fun and the fame because a lot of people are going to see that wall. But sometimes it's in a corporate office. No one's going to see it, but they give you a lot of money. So then it's the financial and maybe the fun. But it's got to be 2 of the Fs, of the 3 Fs. And then sometimes the 4th F, I always say, is just fuck off.
So we talked about censorship, and I feel that actually you can play the role of improving the soft power of China, giving another image of China. So just a slight comment on what we said before. You mentioned emails. You receive emails, but when we look at your business online on Taobao and so on, we don't feel that, maybe we are wrong, we didn't do an analysis correctly, but we didn't feel that online was a key driver for you. We didn't feel that sales online were a key point for you. Are we correct?
Yeah, my online business is very small compared to my retail. I love creating an experience. So our stores in Beijing, it's all about the experience. All of our stores are run by retired old Beijing ladies. We do incredible murals and artwork, and everyone gets a free gift. And, the stores are all street level stores. So it's all about the experience. And online is a tough market, especially in China. Taobao is so much noise. There's millions of T-shirts, not to mention millions of T-shirts that have copied mine, and they're extremely cheap. So it's very hard for me to compete on Taobao, which is the big Chinese, e-commerce site. I had plastered.com, and it's a niche brand. So I had never spent money in trying to get the world to see my brand yet. And so I concentrate on my retail stores and the agency side of my business. That's what brings me, the most profit. So I do understand that online has huge potential. But the way I've had a basic day-by-day strategy is how I work. But it's working for me right now. I haven't put a lot of money into online. I have had people come and want to buy huge, wholesale. The margins are very small. You can't control the experience. So I really control the brand and keep it small, keep it profitable, have a great lifestyle that comes with it, and I get to create and enjoy things.
Did your experience in Italy with a pop-up store change your mind on gaining more visibility online? No, it didn't. I just concentrate right now on what we're doing well. I think, if I'm going to put money into a better online store, it will probably be towards the end of next year. This year we have another possible 2 store openings in China. And that's, I have a small team, a small core team of 6 people. And we're concentrating very much on getting that done and executing that well. And that, I know pretty much if I get a store in a good location with good foot traffic, I know I can convert. I know I can guarantee I can convert on that. With online, there's no guarantee, and it's a long tail for me with online. So I don't have the patience or the time to invest into that right now. You mentioned you're opening 2 new stores, and I was certainly mistaken on it, but I read that somewhere you opened in Shanghai, you closed in Shanghai, and you decided to focus only in Beijing. But I feel that I'm wrong on it. You are still opening locations in China, right? Yeah, we're only in Beijing. Yeah, we are right now. We're purely in Beijing. I'm looking at possibly setting up a store in a second-tier city in another spot in China later this year. But Beijing's 23 million people. We're a Beijing-centric brand. We're concentrating on Beijing. We do have people who carry our products in other places. We've sold in Germany and France and Singapore and other territories. But that's a very small part of our business, that wholesale side. So for me,
if the cash flow is good, and I've got a good location, and I can have a solid legal standing on that location. In other words, I can have a proper business license. So I have I have to do a lot of due diligence. If the location is good, then I'll go for it. But only if I've got the money to do that. Like I say, I grow organically. I don't have investors, and I like to grow slowly and keep the business lean. And that can be very difficult in China because there's so much opportunity. When people come to you all the time, I had a guy come to the store yesterday. I was just going to the store to inspect a new installation that I was putting in. There's a guy standing there. He's just like, I do IP for Chelsea and Inter Milan. And he was speaking big. He's like, I want to meet with you now because I want to do like a boutique hotel that's all your artwork. And of course you're like, well, that's very exciting. And then you go meet with him and, he talks very big. And then you walk out of the meeting thinking, you know what? I don't want to commit to that right now. So you need to know when to say no. And especially in China, you need to know when to say no. And it can be very, very tough. It's a constant battle for me. As I see opportunity, I want to pounce on it, but then I think that might stretch our resources, and then we won't be able to deliver our core product well. And so it's a struggle.
How big is your team now?
So I have around 20 employees.
Okay, for basically within your shop, right?
So shop staff make up around 14. And the other 6 are my core team of designers, accountants, inventory, production, that kind of stuff.
I see. What are the challenges of managing a shop? What can you share in terms of challenges? The rent is a challenge. I guess it increased a lot over the last 13 years, 14 years. What are the challenges you face?
Yeah, there's so many challenges in running any business, and a retail business is tough. Cash is king in business, and we produce a lot of ideas, a lot. I'm a very impulsive guy. I have an idea, I create it. That's very much a life goal for me. And sometimes, the ideas get out of control, and then suddenly I have no cash flow because everything's caught up in the storeroom. There's 2 million RMB in the storeroom, and I've got 500,000 RMB in cash flow. That's a real challenge. It's curtailing the ideas. Rent is obviously a huge challenge, which is a big factor in playing into our, into the net profit. Frontline staff, is one thing we've done very well is that, we only hire ladies above the age of 50 to work in our stores. And so our retention is extremely good. Generally retention in retail is about 6 months in China. My retention,
wow.
I have one old lady, Kang Ai, who's worked in my store for 13 years. I've got another one, Zhang Jie, has worked for 11. I've got Li Ai, who's been in my brand for 8 years. They're like local matriarchs. They're very much part of our experience. They live in the areas where the stores are. So that's been a big win for us. But the challenges are huge. And as I was saying earlier on about doing due diligence, I don't open in shopping malls. So I'm working with street level stores. A lot of street level stores are being bricked up and closed down in Beijing because Beijing is trying to move people out of the center of the city because it's overcrowded. So they close down businesses. You can lose your business overnight. I mean, my flagship store, provides a huge amount of our revenue. And, 3 years ago, they decided to close down the whole street, to renovate it. And they closed down a lot of the smaller businesses that didn't have business licenses. But, I was basically closed for 3 months and I lost a huge amount of money. So, policy, those things can change very quickly here. So the challenges are huge, but the opportunities are also huge here in China, just because of the sheer amount of people and just how excited they are by creativity.
From a management perspective, when you have an idea, how many items do you produce of a T-shirt? I feel you are very creative, but on the other hand, you need to produce those T-shirts and predict a bit of many items you are going to sell. How do you manage that?
Okay, so fortunately, with T-shirts, that's quite easily controlled. I mean, you can produce blank T-shirts in bulk. We have data on our stores. We have a very good, POS system. And so when we have a new design, I can print 30 if I want, or I can print 1,000. They're all screen printed by hand, just outside Beijing. And so, we'll do an initial test print of, let's say, 60. And then we'll monitor that very closely. All the ladies that work in our stores, the old ladies, they use WeChat and they take pictures of our customers. So it's a close relationship. You put on a T-shirt. She said, "Can I take a picture of you?" And I'm sure. They take a picture. She shares it in our WeChat group with all my core team. And then we can see as our customers are changing. And then underneath that picture, she has to leave a story. Because our brand is all about story. We're selling a story. And so like, this customer came from Tianjin. He came in such and such a car. He's about to get married next year. It's his third time in Beijing, and he works at Volkswagen or whatever. That story is incredibly powerful for us because we can understand our customer. And so we'll do small prints. We'll see who's buying it. We'll see who's not buying it. We'll realize what the market is for this, what the market is from that. And then we'll have internal meetings, and decide, what kind of route we should go down artistically, which type of designs we should maybe make more or less of. But at the same time, you need to take big risks. You need to create artwork that's surprising for a customer, because if you're only designing for your customer, and I've worked with brands like that, they said, "Oh, listen, Dominic, can you create for us?" I'm like, "Sure." You sign a contract. They were like, "Well, can you just do us a mood board first? Because we're going to send it to our customers and see if they like it." I'm like, "That's a big mistake." Plastered was built on surprises, and people like it when we come out with stuff that they never expected. But if you're only designing for your customer aesthetically, you become like every other brand. You become very boring very quickly. It's like Matthieu, your girlfriend or your wife, telling you something to do, and you always listen to her. You always say yes to everything. She's going to get bored of you very quickly. And with us, with the customer, we want to deliver surprises. So at least 30 to 40% of our design has to be new, exciting, and surprises. They can fall flat on their face, or they can explode. But we need to be innovative. We need to be creative. And that's how we stay ahead, of the other people that try to come in the market and copy our stuff.
And so far, what has been the best seller?
Crikey. Well, we have a full print design at the moment, which, Chinese are very bold when it comes to fashion. They'll wear anything. We just came out with a pair of pajamas, that are bright pink and have pixel design all over them, because people in China wear their pajamas out on the street. Very bold. Our current bestseller is a full print T-shirt. It's absolute madness. It's red, it's yellows, it's blues. It's a whole collage of illustration of little ideas, old television sets, old bottles of washing up liquids, cigarettes, alcohol. It's all like a whole collage of dreams put into a full print T-shirt. When I saw that T-shirt first designed, I was like, I'm not sure if that's going to sell. And we put it in the store and it went crazy. And we've been able to take that full print design and put it onto pencil cases, onto hoodies, onto tote bags. It's become our best selling design of all time. And it's complete madness when you look at it. But when the Chinese customers come in, they get drawn straight to it. It's like a shining star in the store. Foreign customers, not so appealing. But foreign customers only make up around 10%, 5% of our business. But the Chinese young crowd come in and they see that, like, wow.
Foreigners represent how many percentage, you said?
About 10%.
10%. Okay. So it's mainly Chinese, actually, clients. I feel that to appreciate what you do, we need to have a distance toward Chinese culture, Chinese history, even literature, politics, whatever. So do you think Chinese have this distance, or do you think it's more about the designing itself? Are they happy to find back some picture of the past to play with it, or it's more about the design?
I think number one, it's about it's about whether that design aesthetically can grab them, in terms of the colors and the layout. Okay. Aesthetics is number one. Number two is that they come in and they discover the story and they look in there like, oh, right, look, there's that from when I was young. And I remember that. And that book. And then, because design needs to have meaning. Story is so powerful. We spend so much time and money training our frontline staff to be able to tell the story of the brand and tell the story of each design. So absolutely design needs to have meaning. And we're selling a story at Plastered. So aesthetically, it grabs them. That's very important. Then there needs to be the story in there. And you need to be able to have the experience in the store that your frontline staff can tell that story. And then you'll find that, your conversion rates are extremely high. But also, we do mad window displays. Right now we have a giant sculpture in our flagship store window, which is an old Chinese toy that everyone had in the 1970s, very iconic toy. And its face changes every 3 or 4 seconds. It turns, and it's holding a knife behind its back. And so people walk past and they see that and they get totally grabbed by it. When you're talking about a street that's 50,000 people a day, the minute we put that sculpture in the window, our traffic increased by 15% coming into the store. So, to give you an idea, February last year, we probably had 15,000 people that came into that store. February the next year with that sculpture, we had almost 20,000 people come in. And so, and then you convert on a percentage of that traffic. And so you can work out mathematically the value of that sculpture right away. I'm not a big one on numbers, to be honest. I'm not very good at numbers, but I know.
I feel you know them. You know your numbers.
But you expect me to give you my numbers.
You said 30,000 people in the. Yeah. You said 30,000 people in the street, right? And you got 15,000 people in your shop. That's what you just said. Half of the streets come to your shop.
30,000 people a day on that street, and I get.
Oh, sorry.
I get 30,000 people a month in the store. So
got it.
Or on a good month, I get 33,000 people in the store. Yeah.
Okay, I see. What about Beijing now and Beijing in like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? What do you feel about the city? How do you analyze the changes in the city? There's a lot of nostalgia, I feel, with expatriates who have been in the city for 20 years. What's your opinion and what's your feeling about the city and its evolution?
That's such a question that comes up a lot. People are saying to me, what's the biggest thing that's changed? And I never know how to answer that question. Beijing is in a constant state of flux. I arrived, Beijing was 8 million people. It's now 23 million people. When I arrived, it was a flat city. There was no high rises. There was not even a 3rd ring road. Now there's 7 ring roads, I think, about to be. Everything's changing. People's body shapes have completely changed in the time that I've been. Their diets have changed. When I came here in 93, if I'd met someone who'd even left China, it was surprising. If you met someone, I've been to America, I'd be like, wow, you went to America. And I think to myself, what? And you came back? Why didn't you just stay there? Now you look on your WeChat moments, the social element of it, on any public holiday, and my Chinese friends are in Turkey, in Alaska, in America, in Britain. They're all over the world. And so everything's changed. But I think the mistake that a lot of people think is that China's westernizing, and it's not westernizing, it's globalizing. It's very much taking on its own character, its own eccentric idea of how the world, should be or how they want to celebrate it. And you can see it even just in fashion. They put all kinds of things together you'd never expect. So it's a country with a very long history. And it's just opening up, it's only been open for 40 years. That's it. The economy's been open for 40 years. There's nothing. There's so far to go. And the economy's not really slowing down. People are like, China's economy is slowing. It's not really. It used to be 10% of this, and now it's 6% of this. It's adding to the world economy the size of the South Korean economy every year. It's crazy growth when you go out to the 2nd and 3rd tier cities. So opportunity still here is here, and it's still, it's exciting. At the end of the day, I'm a very hyperactive person. I love things to be changing all the time. I like to be out doing things. China's a playground for an entrepreneur like me. I'm a creative guy. I like to bring ideas to life. I can find any factory in China that can bring my ideas to life. I've got a whole wealth of customers in my stores who get excited about my ideas. There's challenges here for sure, but generally, this is an incredible country to be an entrepreneur. If you apply yourself and understand that people here are good people, they're brilliant entrepreneurs. They want to win the game too, but you can build relationships and you can not lose your moral compass, and you can be a good entrepreneur in this country if you apply yourself. I've had an incredible journey. I feel very lucky for that. Definitely timing has been a huge part of it, but another part of it has been understanding the people and building relationships and friendships. And I've had incredible support over the years.
One question I forgot to ask actually was about the creation of your products. How do you find the inspiration? Do you have a pattern of working on the inspiration? Do you have time slots where you read, you go through shops, you go through all the part of the city, or is it coming just like it's coming within the day or it's the night, whatever?
Yeah,
okay.
you know what? I hate it when people say to me, let's have a creative meeting. You know, it's almost like a conundrum. It's like they don't go together. You know, the more you try to make creativity efficient, the worse it works. You can't make it efficient. So you need to give it time. There's a great slogan, which I love, which is your brand equals the sum of your life experiences, which is life is an experience. So for me, you know, I travel a lot. And it's a big part of my inspiration. You know, the brand of who I am is made up of this young guy that left England, traveled around Africa, South America, India, China, and saw these incredible things and fell in love and ate incredible food and ended up in dangerous situations, ran out of money. You know, it was a little bit silly. I'm just celebrating who I am. And I understand that life is an experience. And if I'm going to have ideas, I need to have a rich, fulfilled life. And I need to be happy. I need to be enjoying it. And so I try to just celebrate who I am, enjoy life. And then the ideas seem to come extremely quickly. The importance is, in terms of execution ideas, is number one, write them down. Number two, be brave. Because, of course, sometimes you have an idea at a moment, after a couple of beers, or you feel high and excited. And then you start executing it and you lose all confidence in it. And you start second guessing yourself. And when you second guess, it becomes totally watered down and shit. So for me, creativity is about keeping the purest side of it, getting excited about something, writing down that idea, delivering it to my team, and then trying to execute the purest form of it. And then that's creativity, and not trying to second guess myself too much. You know, the more I think about the customer, the worse the design comes. Sometimes, you know, we realize we have to deliver commercial things. And I sit down with my creative director and we're like, but the customer. And then eventually something comes out and it's absolute shit. And we deliver it and the customer doesn't even like it. You know what I mean? So it's important to be brave. But at the same time, of course, there need to be systems in place. And you need to have discipline. You know, and continually create, because it's very easy to get caught up and think I've got writer's block or I don't have any ideas. You just have to work through those moments and sometimes produce shit. That happens.
I see a process in what you describe. Is that when you have an idea, you write it down, you talk to your team. How do you work only on one idea at a time? Do you work on several ideas at a time? Do you stick to one idea until you know it's finished, and or you give up or you continue? Do you have a framework like this, or
no? I work
really
on lots of ideas. Lots of ideas are floating around. So you know, I have an ideas folder. And quite often what happens is you have an idea that's on the back burner because you're not quite sure if you want to execute it or if you can execute it, but you keep it there. Then another idea comes together and then you stick the two together and you realize that suddenly, you know, creativity is so often about just taking two things that are unrelated and sticking them together anyway. But in the design process, I have a lot of things floating around, a lot. And then suddenly this one I'll pluck out of there and put with this one together and and then I get this artist and it creates, you know, an absolute diamond. You know, in the chaos of my life, Matthieu, is where I find the diamonds. And it's important for my life to be chaotic. I believe that I understand that structure can set you free. It can, of course. The more structured my life, the more time I have. But at the same time, if it's too structured, I have no ideas. So I need on one side to be chaotic. I also need to be systemized and balanced. And you've got to find that balance. And you know, Nana Guxiang was created on creativity and creative stores. But I'm like the only one that's left. All the creative stores closed down. They couldn't keep up with the rents. And that's because those entrepreneurs couldn't keep up with the structure and the finance side of things. I've been fortunate to surround myself with entrepreneurs in Beijing. I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And so I've learned from them. I surround myself with smart people who understand systems, who understand processes. And
you're part of EO.
Yeah, I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization in Beijing. I have been for 10 years.
I see. Oh, I think I will have interviewed all of them by the end of the year. It's very interesting. I like to talk during the coming 5-7 minutes, because I know you have to leave in 7 minutes, 7-8 minutes, about your other roles, your other experience you had. And you said that China is full of opportunities. We saw that you have been a TV presenter. You have written a book, and you are speaking to MBAs and EMBAs often, because you have been in 60 Chinese universities, 60. Could you tell us, for this last experience I'm talking about, what do you tell them? What do you talk about to those MBA, EMBAs, where I feel they would come up with consumer-centric thinking, with business model, which is exactly the opposite of what you said?
Yeah. You know what? Story is powerful, Matthew. Story is so powerful. And so when I talk to universities, I've been doing this now for 10 years, talking at universities. Ever since I won the British Entrepreneur of the Year award in China, I got asked to talk, and then I was terrified about doing it. But then I exercised myself and I got better. And every time I did a talk, I realized what made people laugh, what kept people's attention. So every time I finish a talk, then I would tweak it and make it better. So my talk is an ongoing process. And I quite often base my success on my talks. So am I adding new content to my talk? Then I'll understand, am I actually getting shit done, or am I doing interesting things? So my talk is constantly changing, but it's a story. It starts with me leaving school. And then I had a whole list of reasons why I was unsuccessful at school. You know, I was impulsive. I was immature. I was a daydreamer. I was always getting up to dangerous things. These were the things that defined me at school, that got me in trouble and why I was unsuccessful at school. Then I take those elements and then I tell stories, immature stories. You know, I was immature and I did this, but it led to success. I was impulsive. I didn't write a business plan. So I tell stories based on the reasons why I was unsuccessful at school. And then it all comes to a beginning, and then a middle, and then a very dramatic end. And it's all connected. So, you know, I've built this story over the last 10 years as I craft myself and craft my own story. And it's very appealing to people. You know, it's very tangible. I tell them how I got into television, how I became a television, presenter, and how I wore a T-shirt on a Chinese TV show saying I'll buy your secondhand drugs with my telephone number on it. Really immature, silly stunts that I pulled off, and product ideas that get people excited about creativity. I just share that journey with people, and it always goes down well. There's no numbers in it. There's nothing particularly exciting. I'm not going to tell people about how I've made millions of dollars. It's purely about ideas, creativity, my journey, taking what people see as your perceived weaknesses, turning them into your strengths, and celebrating yourself.
What's the most often question asked question they have to you?
The university students.
Mm-hmm.
In China, a lot of them ask me, how can I be creative? Which is a very awkward question. And I'm never sure how to answer it without sounding, too cocky or placing yourself on too high a pedestal. The one bit of advice I always give is back to what I was saying about your brand equals the sum of your life experiences. I said, for me, creativity comes from life and it comes from experiences. I said, I'm sure you can afford a bicycle. And so why not, we're in Chengdu right now. I said, why not get on your bicycle and ride to a city that's 3 days away? Don't make a plan, just get on the bike and go. See who you meet along the way, see the challenges that happen, see the inspiration that comes from that. And I can almost guarantee that journey will inspire you. And for me, that's where creativity comes from. And so, I get a lot of that. Yeah.
During the last 3 minutes, could you tell us more about the book you wrote, A Foreign Entrepreneur's China Dream? You wanted to call before Na Liang Kuai Na Dai Zhi, but the editor didn't agree.
Yeah. Publishing in China, obviously, all the publishing houses are government owned. And so that was a ghostwriter. So at that time that book came out, I was pretty famous. I was a judge on the Chinese equivalent of The Apprentice. For 5 years, I had that role. So I was on television twice a week of an audience of 10 plus million. And so the publishing house came to me and asked if I would do that book because I was famous. And so, it's very much a watered down version of my life because they had to cut this out and cut that out. And that's a little bit too naughty, or that's this. I wanted to call it Na Daija, which is Beijing dialect for saying piss off in a kind of polite way. But then they said, no, let's call it, Foreign Entrepreneur's China Dream. So I was like, so that was, the book. It was bizarre, even having a book because I don't read. It was nice that people enjoyed it. I get messages every now and then from people who enjoy that book or get inspired by that book. It was a funny process, understanding how publishing works in China.
Yeah, where can we buy? We can buy this book only in China. Or?
I don't think you can. It's only in Chinese. And,
okay.
And I think it's already. I mean, it was published 4 years ago, and it sold out. And I'm not sure if they republished it now. So yeah, the book is gone.
Okay. Last question: do you wear your clothes? Do you wear your brand?
Yeah.
Right now?
Not always. No. Right now, not. No. I think I just wear whatever is on the top of my t-shirt pile. But sometimes I wear my own brand. Sometimes I don't. Depends on the mood.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Dominic, for your time. It was very inspiring, very refreshing, very positive as well. It's good to listen to positive speech in this current world where we talk about all negative news about trade war and so on. So thank you very much for being with us. Hope you enjoyed and hope everyone enjoyed the talk too. Thanks, Dominic.
It's great talking with you.